Well, my name is Jen, and I'm in Asheville, part of the Western North Carolina Workers Assembly, and with the Southern Workers Assembly Coordinating Council. And this training is part 2 of our how to organize a workplace outreach blitz. And in this part, we're going to be talking about what makes a good flyer, because that's an important piece, something that's going to grab people's attention. We're going to be talking about methodology at the gate. Basically, what exactly are you going to do when you're at this workplaces that you're doing a blitz at? Then we're going to talk about follow-up, how to have follow-up conversations with the workers that you make contact with. And then we'll talk about what comes next. So with all of that, let's go ahead and hear from Ed about what makes a good flyer. What's going to get people's attention? Take it away, Ed.
All right. Now that I've mastered the technology, so there's a couple things to think about. Every gate flyering is an act of organization. And so you need to think about what is it that we're trying to do with this piece of paper. So for example, if you want a union negotiating committee, the day after negotiations, you should be on the gate with a flyer that has information for people. It says, in negotiations today, we propose the following, and the company proposed the following, and the company's not budging on such and such. That's an informational flyer. It has a very particular reason for being written. If you were on a campaign, say you were campaigning for a pension plan, you would want to start to agitate to support the campaign. That's an agitational flyer. It's a campaign flyer. We're not doing either one of those flyers. We're doing something different. We're doing a flyer that really is a fishing net. We are looking for people like us. We're looking for folks that they don't necessarily have to be pro-union or Democratic Party voters or anything like that. We're looking for people who feel that a change is needed. They're pro-change, and they want to have an avenue by which they can make their lives better, their workplace better, maybe their community better. So that we're looking for a very particular and a very few number of folks in the beginning who agree with us. So that's a very particular kind of flyer. And one way of thinking about it is think about yourself. What attracted you to doing what you're doing? What did you see? What did you read? Was there something that said to yourself, I should get involved in this? So that's the sort of flyer that we're doing. It has to be punchy. It has to be very short, and it has to be heavily with graphics. In other words, a photo or a cartoon, or big headlines. One of the nice things about digital in my day, when I was a union organizer, we didn't have, of course, any digital equipment. So that now you can put on the flyer a couple of points and tell people, for more information, right? Go to this website for more information. Click on to this, whatever they call that square. I don't know. I forget the name of it. So that you don't have to load your flyer up with information. You can do it quite easily by referring people to it. But what you're looking for is you highlight a problem. This is a problem. Working people should do something about it. If you agree with that and you want more information, click on this link and come and talk to us. So that's what a Blitz flyer does. So, for example, we probably can even make one right now tonight, just in our heads. So probably you've noticed in the last couple of days, there's significant cuts probably in all of our healthcare is going to happen because of what was passed by Congress. So, for example, if you had a piece of paper in front of you, you could say healthcare costs going up with a big arrow up, right? Healthcare for workers going down with a big arrow down. And then, something like, to get the tax cut for the rich, we have to take less health care. And we've done this before in other flyers. We have a nice picture of all the supporters of Trump at the inauguration. So we have a picture of them. Then we have over each of their heads a little balloon showing how many billions of dollars each one of them is worth. See, you don't need to talk about this. You need to show it. You need to show it. So, so you say, that's the problem with our healthcare system. If you're sick of it, we need to do something about it. Click here to find out what to do with the SWA. We've got some thoughts about this. That's the flyer. That's the whole flyer. So it's really separated into a catchy headline, a catchy graphic. Contact us, right? We need you to join with us to do something about it. Contact us, find out what you can do. That's the flyer. That's the flyer. Keep in mind that a flyer is really a prop. In other words, you don't want to be standing at the gate with your hands empty. So you want to be there. You want to have something to give people, something they can refer to later, particularly when we're using web addresses to look up stuff later on. And you will find that some people will look at this and drift on over and say, what's this all about? And you'll tell them. And what we're really looking for in the first couple of times around, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people. That's all we're looking for. We're looking for you. We're looking for you. So keep in mind what attracted you to make this effort is the same thing that would attract other people. And it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. That's it, Jen. I don't have anything else to say.
All right. Well, thank you, Ed. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts that they want to share regarding this flyer?
Guess I covered it, huh, sister?
I reckon you did. Vijay says half sheets work well. You can print front and back. I agree. I would also like to say, I think I just want to really reiterate what Ed said, is that short, punchy text. Like if you have a whole bunch of words on there, most people are going to look at that and be like, I don't have time to read all of that. So, you be efficient with your words. Say what you got to say in the least amount of words possible.
One of the measures is, particularly if you're at a walk-in gate or even a drive-in gate, you give the person the flyer, they ought to be able to get the gist of the flyer, get the meaning of it. By the time they get from the gate to the parking lot or the gate to the time clock, it's got to be that quick. I look at it, I get an idea what this is all about. If I'm interested, maybe I put it in my pocket, save it for later. And if I'm not interested, I throw it away.
Very good point. All right. Well, thank you, Ed. That was really helpful.
I'm happy to do it, guys.
And yeah, thank you, Ed. And if more questions emerge, we can also include it after our next session. But now we're going to transition into a panel discussion with Brian and Vijay on methodology at the gate and how to look out, ask these questions here on the screen and they'll answer, go back and forth. And then we'll break it up in between to see if there's questions from everybody, and we'll go from there. So Vijay and Brian, tell us about your Blitz. How many days did it run? What kind of workplaces did you target? How did you research the locations? And where did you distribute leaflets? And I'm going to spotlight you all.
Thanks, John. Let me see if Brian is available. Let's see. Okay. All right, I think he's on mute, so I'm just gonna kind of do my little rant first, and then I'll let Brian kind of chime in. So, if y'all were here last week, y'all know that you already did your GIS mapping, so you figured out where people are gonna park. You looked at your property lines. You did your looking at what kind of schedules the plant is running to see when you should go. And so now today is the big day of the Blitz. You're there maybe at 4:30 in the morning to catch the night crew coming out or the morning crew going in, or maybe you're in the evening. So I've done two different blitzes, both in South Carolina. I had the distinct privilege of being on the first big blitz of SWA in Spartanburg. That ran for 3 or 4 days, I want to say. We started in the morning, and then we did a late afternoon shift to catch the people going out and coming in. And so, what kind of workplaces did we look at? Primarily, we targeted really big employers at the time, and these employers are also really important to the local economy of Spartanburg. So you might know BMW. We didn't do BMW because we have some other contacts in there already. But we did things like Michelin. Michelin has their North America headquarters throughout the state, and they've got 15 plants throughout the state. So we hit up a Michelin one. We hit up a Mitsubishi chemical plant. They were the first US based plant for Mitsubishi at the time, like way back in the 70s. What were some other ones? We did Keurig Dr. Pepper. They create like recyclable like the inserts for coffee pods out of recycled coffee. So they were really employee dense as well. And there is an Adidas distribution center. I mean, Spartanburg is just the manufacturing capital of the state. So we focused on really large employers. And we also did an Amazon facility, obviously. So to kind of give y'all what it looks like on the ground, you got people coming in either at a stop sign or they're feeding in at, like just some gate. These people are a little bit easier to catch because they're probably going to sit in their car for a little bit anyways, and they're not all going out at the same time. And so it's a lot easier to catch them down with a flyer. And so I'll give you the Michelin example. It's a little bit set in from the road where their driveway starts and where a stop sign is. So we were a little bit past the stop sign on each side to catch cars instantly going out, as well as cars coming in from the left. And so we would hold out a flyer. Somebody made a good point of like folding it in half. So that way it kind of looks like you're already like giving it to them and they're kind of already expecting something. So you hold it out to the car and you're in your safety vest in the middle of the night and they're like, what's happening? So try to get close to their car. You don't want to get run over, but hopefully they'll roll down the window or you can kind of hold it out in front of them. And my spiel was Spartanburg, our workers across Spartanburg are coming together for better wages, safety on the job, and respect. Does that sound like something you're interested in? If so, they'll take the flyer. If they sound really jazzed, what you can do is you'll have a clipboard with you or just another piece of paper where you'll ask, great, can I get your name and phone number for a follow-up for a Jen's conversation later? And this way, this person, like to really focus on, and you can write down things like what shift they're going in and what, work site you were actually at so you can keep track of all this for your notes for later. And if, hopefully this whole interaction doesn't last any more than 20 seconds. These people, they want to get to work. They just want to get their day done so they can leave and go back home to their family and do whatever they need to do so that way we're not slaving away. So keep it kind of short, but still, really jazzy. And this is really why the flyer is so important because that's your leave behind. So that's how they'll follow up with you, read more about it, really give them the information on the flyer so that way they're more compelled to actually follow up with you later. Best practices, there were a couple of things that immediately stick out to me about this. I think the big one is being comfortable with taking up space. I'm kind of a people pleaser and a socially anxious person sometimes, but this really needs to happen. Revolution has to happen, and you have to be comfortable with disrupting the day-to-day of this person to really help us all in this one big fight. So don't be scared and just stick to your guns. Rehearse your spiel the night before so that way you feel more confident when you're out there, and that way you're not feeling like you're having to rehearse and then you get more scared while you're there, blah blah blah. So rehearse the night before, keep it short, and then be confident out there. I think another big thing is again, focusing on where you're going to park and pre-planning as much as you can. Again, if y'all rewatch last week's recording, which will give you more info in the chat later, there's a lot of preparation that goes into this. So the more planning that you do, the easier the blitz will be. You can just focus on building a stronger relationship with workers. Some people like the clipboard idea. I've seen it's kind of a hit or miss. Sometimes it makes it seem like you're either trying to sell them something or, you know, it's somebody from corporate who's doing a survey. So it's really up to you, I think. You can try it both ways. This is a very experimental thing. See what it's like without the clipboard, see if that works for you. If it doesn't, you can use the clipboard. Sometimes, as you'll see on here, did you run into management or police? There were a couple of times that cops were called on us by management on the inside, and management did come out. A lot of the time, honestly, they're just going to kind of stand there and not do anything. There was one incident where management did try to run people off and, you know, try to say like the property line isn't actually where it said it was. And so, you know, if it gets to a place where you feel unsafe, you know, obviously leave. But again, all that pre-planning of seeing where the property line is, when the cops show up or when management comes out, you're off their property and you're not disturbing anybody, you're not disrupting the peace. You know, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just trying to help. Volunteer parking, police and management. When management does come out, you know, just say, you know, we're on public property. We're just educating and recruiting for a workers' assembly. You know, maybe this is like a facilities, not manager, but like a security guard that is also really fed up with their job. And the last one that I did in Columbia, she got connected with us and she was actually really influential with workers and she knew a lot of them. So she was actually a really strong asset, despite being somebody that you would think is, you know, really a detriment to us to be seen talking. But that turned out to be really good. Workers are kind of hit or miss when management comes out. You know, some of them are like, hell yeah, that means you're doing something right. Sometimes if it's a really fearful workplace, sometimes that can really hinder your ability to really, you know, stop them and communicate with them. But it just kind of depends again on the dynamics of that workplace. One thing I'll say when going out, especially at like Amazon plants or, you know, if everybody's released at the same exact time and there's not like a shift afterwards, it's just car after car after car after car, and you don't want to be the one to back them up. So keep your spiel to like 2 seconds. You can say something like, you know, check out this flyer, check us out the QR code, and just pass them out, because that's, in that case, it's more important to you know, get as many more flyers as you can rather than you know, trying to spend a lot of time at each car. So just kind of modulate, you know, your flow based on the flow of traffic going out. One last thing I'll note is if you can stop one person and there's a line behind that person, you've pretty much got the rest of them behind you. It's a lot easier to talk to them afterwards. So try to get, you know, if there's one person and you see a lot of them behind you, try to wave the flyer out in front of their windshield, you know, try to get their attention to stop them, and then send other people behind you, you know, to that car and down the line. So that way you're not backing up traffic and then causing a safety concern, which is what sometimes the cops will try to say. Let's see. Are there any other questions? Let's see. Brian, are you available? I think you're.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you want to fill in something that I didn't get a chance to fill in, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, sure. So for best practices, I'd say, you know, like what you were saying, you want to keep it kind of loose. You can do all the research and look at the map and say, okay, well, there's this big entrance here, and they're probably gonna, there's right next to the parking lot, so that's going to be where they're coming out. You get down there on the day and you realize, oh, that's a truck entrance. That's only for shipping. And then you got to try to find where the other entrances are. We had to do that at the Coca-Cola bottling plant. We show up and the big entrance we were marked on the map was the shipping entrance. So we had to kind of scout, like kind of go around the perimeter and find out where cars were entering. And as soon as we did, we found the good place to be. But, you know, that happened a few times where you show up and you got to kind of, you know, use your intuition to figure out where exactly you got to stand. sometimes it's an unfortunate scenario where the only entrance you come in and the only place you can stand, they have a huge apron, as in like the distance between like two sets of sidewalk that the cars can kind of come in on. The apron, the road takes up a lot of real estate, and it's huge. We had one where like the size of it was so big we had to use radios to keep in touch with each other. And because that apron was so huge, people were just kind of going by. They didn't feel pressured to stop because of how big that was. And sometimes that you're just going to have to deal with that. Chalk it up as a loss and get whoever you can and move on. Don't feel bad that kind of thing, because you can't go in any further into the property, obviously. But at the same time, there are other places where you're going to find pretty nice bottlenecks. We went to one place where we didn't even have to get even anywhere close to the property. There was a bridge over a tiny creek that was leading into it. So that bridge was our bottleneck. And we were, people were stopping on that bridge. They didn't really like that to get it, to skip ahead towards the, what to do with management and police come out. They really didn't like that. They hated us being out there, that particular place. A HR person came out and was trying to pretend at first like she was just a normal worker, like, oh, what's going on, whatever. She started to immediately try to argue with us about pay being competitive, whatever. I clocked her as an HR person. She didn't like that. And basically, if you're going to engage with these property, the plant managers and the management, whatever, just hold your ground, keep firm, stay stern in your language, but you don't want to escalate. But at a certain point, they're arguing with you on the side of the road, to no point. Maybe, honestly, you could even sit there and go, okay, well, if your pay is competitive, what's your pay? What's stuff like that? You can start asking them questions, and you say, hey, thanks for the intel. Eventually you just say, okay, you have a good day, and you walk to the side of the road. And we just started leafleting in front of her again, after I said have a good day, and she just kind of stood there for another 5 minutes. Afterwards, cops were called. Cop came out, said, yeah, we got 3 different calls that saying, you're stopping people on the road, whatever, and you're making people, you're stopping people. And I said, well, look, I'm on the side of the road. I'm on the grass. If anyone's stopping, they're stopping of their own accord. They're stopping voluntarily, and they would be the ones that are blocking traffic, not me. And the cop said, yep, you're right. I'm going to go tell him to stop calling us. And then basically he left, and that was it. Usually the cops are the ones that are your kind of friends in these situations, which is ironic, but maybe that depends on where you are in the world. Maybe you get further out in the rural areas and maybe the cops are a little worse. But for the most part, if management comes out, they start talking disputes about that stuff. If you want to, I'd say, look, call the cops, let them out here, get the sheriff out here. You can say, I've already talked to him, because you can do that too. You can call the sheriff ahead of time and say, hey, we're going to hold a demonstration. We're going to do leafleting outside this thing. We know where the property lines are. We're just letting you know that we're doing this. And you can say, hey, I've already talked to the sheriff. You can call him if you want, and that'll usually back them down, because these people know they have nothing to stand on. I'll say too, one of the things that one of the property managers tried to say to us was, oh, well, we were standing on the other side of some power lines is where we were standing. And they were trying to say, oh, well, that's part of our property still. Those power lines are on our property. And I told them, look, sidewalks are an easement, as are these power poles, as is this. These are all part of an easement. That means it's all part of public property. Technically, the sidewalk's on your property, but you've signed an easement with to own this property. So therefore, if I can walk on that sidewalk, I can walk in this ditch. Maybe it's not advisable, but I can do it. And that, just in case that kind of line comes out, if they're more prepared for you. I think other best practice, I think radios are a good idea. Like I said, you have a situation where there's 2 entrances, one in, one out, and they're in different areas, and having those radios, having the walkie-talkies is a good way to keep in touch with each other. If somebody comes out and contacts one of them, you can say, hey, come over real quick. Let's handle this guy. And then you go back, in terms of the spiel, what I said was, you know, you want to make it clear to them that you're saying something, because they're going to have especially if it's in the morning, they're going to have their windows up. It's not going to be, you know, it's too cold out, whatever. They're not going to have their windows down, and so you're going to have to make it clear to them that you're saying something, like really move your mouth and make it look like you're saying something to them. And so I would say, you know, Roanoke workers are coming out for better, or looking for better pay, better working conditions, whatever. Then when they roll their window down, I started with my name. My name's Brian King. I'm with the Roanoke Workers Assembly. We're looking for better pay for you all in that plant there. And that kind of gets the message across, makes it personable. You know, maybe you don't want to give your name out. That's fine. But I found that definitely like gives you a lot of more kind of credit, like because the next question is, can I get your number? So if you give your name first, they're more likely to give you their number, you know. I'm not sure if I missed anything, but
Nothing that I can immediately think of. I know that was kind of a lot, so we're gonna try to sum it up into two different slides. Obviously, look friendly and approachable. These are our class siblings. You know, we want to all join the fight together. Hold the leaflet out in front of you. Again, like I was saying, you can kind of fold it in half, so that way they think like, oh, this is already for me. And again, as long as you get the first car, you've pretty much got all of them down the road. The driver's side is usually the preferred side, but that's not usually the way it works out. And if you try to stay in the middle of both of them coming in and out, that's the quickest way to get security or the cops called on you. So, you know, hopefully you can reach them in the passenger side, and the grass is kind of close to the road. And then again, just rehearse the rap ahead of time, so that way you're not fumbling in front of them. And again, along this lines of willing to take up space, I myself sometimes like don't feel like I don't want to bother this person. You know, they're just trying to go to work. I don't want to ask them for their phone number. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. But you know, just push yourself to do it, and you're going to get a larger return in the end. So you know, do your spiel. They seem really interested. Ask for their phone number. If they seem like meh, okay, just tell them to take the flyer, scan the QR code, check us out on the flyer. Couple more things. This is a sample wrap that you can use. Workers across Spartanburg, workers across the tire industry, work across the automotive industry are coming together to fight for better wages, working conditions, and power on the job. Does this sound like something you want to be a part on? And then get their phone number. You can see it's like literally 10 seconds. So that's a good one you can use. And then just get their name, phone number, maybe what shift they're on, and then what workplace they're at. So when you recombine these all later, you have a good map, and you have a good plan to move forward. If you know, maybe they're coming off of work and they, you know, want to spend more time talking to you, that can happen. You'll sometimes get into like a 2-minute conversation, like, well, what is SWA? You know, like, what do you do? Maybe you'll get another leftist in there and it's like, well, you know, I'm an anarchist and I don't believe in like blah, 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 blah. That's okay. Just tell them, you know, come check us out at the next meeting. On the flyer, you should also have your next meeting date listed. And just tell them to come check you out, and, you know, just talk with other workers about, you know, what other work, issues we got going on, because we've probably got the same ones. And then again, just be mindful of traffic and backups, just watching, kind of being aware of your environment at all times to watch out for, you know, other people coming out or, other cars and, you know, cops, whatever. Just be mindful. I know that was kind of a lot to throw at y'all. We're gonna do like 5 or so minutes of, let's see. Yeah, I think we got time for like 5 minutes of question and answer. If you want to just come off mute, and then we can do a stack also if it seems to pile up. No other questions? Y'all sure?
Hi, I'm Ann Ingram. My question is, when doing a blitz, would you suggest doing a windshield blitz?
Oh, that's a good question. So like, say, you know, you're not getting a lot of workers coming out, but there's a lot of cars parked and just sticking the flyer on their windshield? That's a good question. I personally don't experience this, but I've heard that people get irritated if you leave flyers on the windshield. And so I've actually told people to put them inside the door handle instead of the driver's door. So that way they're already grabbing it when they come in. Or like in the mirror if there's no easy way to do it. But the windshield, maybe avoid the windshield, but a different kind of thing to leave it behind is yes, a good point.
Thank you.
Any other points or questions? Okay. All right, well then I'm gonna hand it off to the lovely Miss Jen for worker follow-up. So you've got all of these contacts and you've got all these flyers out to people. People are checking the QR code, they're filling out the sign-up form. What do you do after that to build that relationship so that way they actually, want to come to an assembly meeting and get in this fight for the long run? So Jen, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Okay, great. Just this is my favorite part. I don't know why, but I absolutely love well, I guess I do. I love the nuts and bolts stuff of like, okay, I understand why we got to organize, but I don't know how. And so that was like where I started my organizing journey, was like, somebody please tell me how to do this. And so I've really just gone to lots of trainings and done these trainings a lot because I feel like it's really important. So when we've got, the worker information, now what do we do? Well, we need to follow up with them, right? So in this presentation that I'm doing, we're going to talk about the goal of a structured organizing conversation, how that is similar to and different than a regular conversation, talk about some important things to keep in mind, and what are the steps, which are kind of now more like guidelines. And then we're going to break out into breakout groups and practice role playing the new skills that we've just learned. So I just kind of want to start off by prefacing this with, it really is painless if you let it be. A lot of times organizers put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be helpful, to do things perfectly. And when we have organizing conversations with people that we want to organize with, we really don't have to work as hard as we think we do. If you can have a casual conversation with someone, you can have a structured organizing conversation. All you really need to do to structure the conversation is to keep a few goals in mind. And the reason that we use these goals, these guidelines, is because all organizing happens with conversations. We can't do any organizing if we don't have conversations with people and build trust and relationships. And the organizing conversation is how you build relationships. And relationships are how we build power. And we also use these organizing conversations to find some deeply felt issues. You need to find issues that people really feel inside that they want to do something about. Because a lot of times, we feel like there's so much going on and that nobody really cares. Everybody's apathetic to the plight of their fellow workers, but that's not true. Everybody cares about something. And your job as the organizer is to find out what that something is and to motivate them to act on that something. Next slide. So let's first talk about differences and similarities to regular conversations. So let's start with similarities. In a regular conversation that you're having with a friend or a family member or whatever, your goal really in conversing with people is to build real relationships. Same thing with an organizing conversation. You really do want to build authentic, trusting relationships with people. You also want to get to know the people that you're talking with, both in a regular conversation and an organizing conversation, because you need to get to know what their self-interests are, what they care about, what their life is like, how issues impact their lives. And you also want to have a casual tone, just like you would have in a regular conversation. In an organizing conversation, you don't want to sound robotic, like you're reading from a script, like you're just like trying to get from one step to the next step and the next step. You just want to keep it as a casual flow. Some differences are in a regular conversation that you're having with your friends, you don't necessarily go into the conversation with an agenda, with some goals in mind that you want to get out of the conversation. You're just talking. But in an organizing conversation, you are talking and doing all these other things, but you do have goals. There is a purpose for this. And another difference is that you're going to be building tension. You have to build tension to be able to agitate people, to be able to shake them loose of the complacency that we've and this feeling of despair that capitalism has conditioned us to feel, kind of like we can't do anything about it, so why try? And a lot of people, we disassociate from what's going on because we're just like, well, just got to keep moving, right? So in a regular conversation, you're not going to be building tension to kind of shake people. I mean, unless you are, but in most cases, you're not. You just want to have a conversation. But this one, I'm going to show you how to do this more. You're going to have to build tension. And another difference is that you are going to be making an ask of somebody. You're going to be asking them to do something, to come to a meeting, to talk to their coworkers, to fill out a workplace mapping chart, So those are the similarities and differences from a regular conversation to an organizing conversation. Next slide. Okay, before we get into the steps or the guidelines, there are some really important things to keep in mind while you're having these conversations. The golden rule of an organizing conversation is the 80-20 rule. And before I found this rule out, when I would go out and talk to people, I would talk, and tell them all about why I thought we should organize. And their eyes would just kind of glaze over and they'd be like, yeah, okay. But what you have to do is you have to listen 80% of the time and talk no more than 20% of the time. So they're talking 80% of the time. And you want to not only just listen, but you need to intentionally listen. You need to be listening for very key things, issues. What do they care about? How is the issue that they care about impacting their lives? How is it affecting their family? What are they doing? How are they dealing with it? Listen to all of those things. Listen for things that will give you a clue as to what is going to agitate them out of that capitalism conditioned despair. Ask open-ended questions. Get comfortable with awkward silence. That one for me has always been really hard because I think normally people, if there's silence in a conversation, we feel this need to fill the silence. I know I do. So you just have to get comfortable with that feeling of not saying anything, because if you just be quiet after you ask a question, they're eventually going to say something. And then you can ask more questions on that something that they say to get them to open up even more. And it's normal to feel uncomfortable. You're going to be building tension and agitation, and that's not comfortable. Most of us are conflict avoidant. We don't want to cause issues. We don't want to cause people to feel tense or agitated, but we kind of have to, right? Because that's the only thing that's going to shake them loose from that despair. And be your authentic self. People can tell when you're being robotic and disingenuous. I don't know what that word is, but you know what I'm saying. Just be yourself. The first time I went canvassing with the USSW organizer years ago, I said, oh my God, this feels so awkward. Like Vijay, I also struggle with social anxiety and just feeling like an awkward weirdo when I'm talking to people. And so Megan, the USSW person, said, you are awkward, Jen. We're all awkward. Just embrace it. And so that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. Yeah, I'm going to be awkward. It is awkward. So just keep talking. Just do it. Next slide. Thank you. So what are the organizing conversation steps? If you've ever attended an organizing conversation training or seen it, there tend to be more very strict step by step. But over the course of trainings that I've attended and both hosted, I found that it's really more organic if you think about these steps as more of a guideline and questions that you want to ask and get answers to. So I've also included next to this an arc of the conversation and how it builds up to the tension and then comes back down, because it kind of helps me to visualize what that looks like. So the first step is an issue ID. So you want to say, you know, hi, my name's Jen, or well, you don't have to say that because you've already met them, but just start with talking a little bit about yourself and why you're there and what you're doing, and ask them, if you could change one thing at work, what would it be? Or some similar kind of question. Basically, what do you need? And listen and ask more questions if you don't get it. And then finally, once you have an issue ID'd that you feel like they really feel, then you get to the agitation and laying the blame part, which is, why don't you have it? Let's say it is breaks. In the food and beverage industry, people don't get breaks. You just have to work. And maybe you get to break if you get to go out and smoke a cigarette by the dumpster or something, but you don't really get breaks in the food and beverage industry. So that's one common thing. So people are like, well, I would really love to be able to take a break and eat. And then, so if that's their issue, I'd be like, well, why don't you have that? And let them, think about it. Because I think a lot of people, we internalize the issues that we have as workers as somehow our own fault. And that, so that if you are able to agitate them enough to where they're really thinking about it and they can de-internalize it and lay the blame on who is really the person at fault here, like who can actually fix this? It's the boss, obviously. It's the manager, it's the owner, it's whoever is in control of that scheduling. So get them to really think about that. And you don't want to tell them who's to blame. You want them to think about it and come up with that answer. And the next thing is, once you know what their issue is, you have agitated them and made them feel like, yeah, they're right to feel the way they feel about it. And now they know whose fault it is and who can fix it. Then you say, well, come up with a plan to win. And how you do that is say, well, what do you think it's going to take to get that fixed? And I have found that people who are closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. So they will have a lot more insight into how to fix the issue that they're having in their own workplace than you do. So ask them, what's it going to take to get that win? Help them come up with a plan to win and support them in that idea. Like, yeah, that's a great idea. You should, start a petition with your other coworkers saying, we would like to have a break. We demand a break. And give them kind of like a vision of like, can you imagine if all your coworkers got together and took a petition to the boss with all 25 of your signatures on it saying, we want breaks? How would that work? Do you think that the boss would respond to that? I think they would. So once you've got them a plan to win, then you say, are you ready to fight for this? So that's framing the choice. So what that looks like in practice is, okay, so what I'm seeing is either you can do nothing about it and just keep on not having a break and being hungry for 8 hours and feeling awful after your shift, or you can try to organize with your coworkers and fight to get this win. Which one do you want to do? And hopefully they say, yeah, I'm ready to fight for this. And then you let them know the truth of it. It's going to be hard. The boss is probably not going to love it when y'all get together and all say collectively that we want this thing. But are you still in? Because if we all do this together, yeah, it's going to be hard, but we have a lot more likelihood of winning. And then the you're still in part is getting them to recommit. And what that looks like is saying, okay, great. I'm glad you're still in, even though this is going to be hard, and giving them a task. So the task could be talk to 3 or 4 of your coworkers, get some phone numbers. It could be asking them to make a list of all of the people who work in their workplace and putting it into a spreadsheet template that you have. It could be asking them to come to in the next meeting of your workers assembly and bring some coworkers with them. So this is really also, I just want to say, this is a very brief, condensed organizing conversation overview. Typically, when we do these trainings, they're an hour or two long at least. And we do have a full hour and 45 minutes training on this SWA YouTube page called Organizing Conversations. If you want to check that out after my part here, I'll drop that link in the chat for you. So those are the steps, the kind of the guidelines and the art there. All right, so now we're gonna break out into breakout groups of 3 people each. And what you're gonna do is take turns. Each person's gonna take turns being the worker who's getting organized. The other one is gonna be the organizer who is organizing the worker, and then an observer who's taking note and making sure that you're hitting each one of these points in the organizing conversation steps. So we're gonna take about 15 minutes. After 4 minutes, switch roles, or 5 minutes, I'm sorry, and then we'll come back after 15 minutes. And I'll put the steps in the chat too, so everybody has that. And y'all can just, it looks like Vijay has put the rooms up in there, and you can just join whichever one I think is how it works. Is that right, Vijay? We just pick one? I'm gonna drop a note in the chat to tell people to come on back.
How did your
I
breakout
just,
session?
I thought it was really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good, good.
I nerd out about these things,
Yeah,
but I think they did great.
amazing. Yeah, they're always good. You always hit it right on the nail.
I am gonna look for that, while we're waiting on everybody to come back, I'm gonna get that link to the video, the full length video about organizing conversations.
Okay.
Um, I think I just sent everybody a message saying we're gonna close the rooms in 30 seconds. If it worked, this is my first time doing that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I see the 30-second timer. Yeah,
Okay, great.
breakout rooms are not my thing. I know very little about them.
Yeah, I can barely operate my laptop, so yeah. My first 2 years of organizing, it was all just from my phone.
Yeah,
Hmm.
phone organizing. I mean, it can do just about everything.
Yep. Okay. The rooms are gonna close on their own in 59 seconds.
Oh, people are coming back
Cool.
now. I think that's everybody.
Is that everybody?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Looks like Dylan and Ryan maybe are still, or are they here?
Here,
Yeah,
Are y'all here?
they're on. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, cool. How did that go? Does anybody want to share how it went for them? You can just come off mute if you'd like.
It was really awkward, but I feel like it
Mhm.
was worth doing. Learned a lot.
Yeah, it is always awkward. Role playing is always awkward. Doing it in real life can be awkward. It's just, you got to embrace being awkward.
Ryan and I got to talk through maybe the beginnings of an escalation campaign of like finding those very, very small baby steps because he's kind of on the way to agitating and all of his coworkers are really close. So finding that, really small thing that they could all do collectively is going to be something that he's going to look into.
Awesome. Anybody else want to share or have any questions or things that came up that you found particularly that you struggled with?
Well, I just want to say that I think our session went really well, but it's um the idea of making sure you have everyone on board with you in order to do petitions and to be able to strategize how you want what am I trying to say? Let's see. how to get together to go and get your issue at your job corrected or fixed. So you got to be able to make sure your coworkers are on board and that you have some that are on board with you. And if not, try to talk to them and say, hey, this can work for the better of us instead of not the better of us. So let's come see.
Oh no, I think we lost Anne. Well, Anne was making a very good point, and I just want to say that I kind of, glossed over this because doing it real quick. But what Anne was saying basically is like you want to find an issue that everybody cares about, and in the organizing lingo, they say find the most widely and deeply felt issue, something that a lot of people feel, but also that a lot of people feel deeply about. And then I just dropped in the chat the link to the full hour-long training about how to have an organizing conversation. I dropped that link in the chat. Sorry, it's also me doing most of the talking, but there's some role playing with other people in there too. So I hope that you will watch that. And I think with that, we'll wrap the organizing conversation worker follow-up piece, and I'll hand it off to a job man.
Yeah, thank you, Jen, and thank you for the practical skills, the hands-on, and also thank you to all the worker assembly and leaders in the SWA who presented thus far. We do have a hand from Dylan, so we can go there. Then we can talk about what's next. Dylan?
Yeah, I actually have a question I just thought of. And if we don't have time, that's okay too. But yeah, so at my workplace, I work at the museum here, and it's kind of split between different departments, and the departments are kind of isolated from each other. And each department kind of has their own unique issues. I mean, like pay is like an issue that everybody feels. But in my department, specifically in admissions, uh, the CEO basically unilaterally made the decision to like lock our AC at 74 degrees. And like we work in admissions, so there's like a big glass window too. And we're in Tallahassee, Florida, so the sun just like bakes us. And he also sets it so it automatically goes up to 80 degrees an hour before close. So that's one of the issues that we in admissions, which is like 7 of us, feel in our department specifically. But one problem I've had, or one thing that I've heard from people in admissions talking to them about it, like everyone's pissed off about it, and people are ready to like, write a petition about it or something. But one concern that I've heard from everyone, or almost everyone, is concern about like getting our admissions manager in trouble because she kind of has, I mean, they're a little bit more sympathetic to her than I am, to be honest, but she doesn't really have any say over whether this happens or not. It's kind of just a unilateral decision that the CEO makes. And like, I don't know, the whole museum's in a unique spot where like the CEO was like supposed to retire, but he like didn't, and like the board wanted him to retire. But yeah, I was just wondering if there's any advice about approaching that where it's like your coworkers are like scared of like doing something because it'll make our manager look bad.
Well, I think, and other people can jump in too, but I think that part kind of goes down to framing the choice, right? Like, it would be like, well, I guess we can just keep suffering in this heat, like it's probably making some people sick to be that hot at work, for the sake of our manager, not making her look bad, or we can all get together and sign this petition. Don't even ask your manager to sign it and then leave her out of it, Vijay, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, this was something I heard a lot at Starbucks because store managers would, become really close with their partners, so that way that was an anti-union tactic back in the day. And my whole thing was, this is against Starbucks. This isn't against my manager. And in your case, I would say that like your manager is also suffering from these conditions. And so, if they want to test how close she's looking out for them, she can also join in on the fight and she can sign on to something, or she can also demonstrate. She can withhold her labor just like y'all can. But I think you also have to, as a worker, put yourself first in the situation, because then if you don't, I mean, then it's still miserable for her regardless if you do something or not. And I don't think she would get in trouble per se, because I think it would just depend on your escalation plan and your tactic. Yeah, go
So
ahead.
I guess like asking like practically, and this might be a question that like we have to answer ourselves with like being the ones who actually work there. But like delivering a like having a petition, just say we wrote one just among our department specifically. Um one thing that we were considering is this something that we like just directly with no heads up to our manager like give to the CEO? Or is this something that we go to our manager to first and be like, hey, this is what we're gonna do? Okay, got it. Enough said.
Your labor is your power, and always they can plan around that and they can get salts in. Not salt, scabs.
Yes, great. Great questions, Dylan, and thank you for the response, Jen and VJ. I'll add, I teach in public history at NC State, and so I would love to talk about ways that our department could support you and your coworkers and just the larger effort of public history jobs and fields and museums, monuments, historic sites are beginning to organize. So I would love uh, to connect Dylan and see how we can support. It's 8:23. Talk about what's next. I know we have until 8:30. But part one and part two really captured what it takes to conduct a blitz. And it takes a very specific type of methodology, approach, and level of concentration, and really rigor and understanding of the local political economy. And that is very, very important. And what's equally important, as Jen and others have said on a number of occasions, is the follow-up, is the debrief. And so after every blitz, every interaction with a workplace, you really want to assess what worked, what didn't work, what responses did you get, how did workers respond at this workplace or that workplace, and assess it so that when you return to that workplace, you can make improvements on connecting and building relationships with those workers. And also, as you are reflecting, it's an internal thing for your assembly, but it's also very, very important to share it out to the larger SWA network. I remember a few months back when all the blitzes were taking place on the SWA email list, workers sharing reflections about what they experienced, and it was good energy. And other workers throughout the South were able to see what traction and what strategies and tactics others were using. So share your assessment and your debriefs with the SWA. And um, uh, uh, another part of what's next is the question of follow up and regular meetings. So you want to follow up with the contacts you made. You spend 1 week for the blitz, and then the next week for follow up. Doing that one-on-one conversation that Jen mentioned, and urging workers to come to a meeting with other coworkers to talk about issues on the job and building a workplace committee on the job. And can we go to the next slide, please? Um, Yeah, plan of division of labor is also important. So among your Blitz team, what is the schedule you are going to have for follow-up when you're gaining traction among workers? Workers are interested, they want to meet, they want to talk about the next phase. You and your assembly should figure out what's the best method to follow up to meet who's doing what and who's taking on what responsibility. So the follow up is very, very crucial. That relationship building with workers, that trust building with workers, because oftentimes you're bringing out issues that they're experiencing on the job and that they're eager to take action on. And so capitalizing on that momentum, showing that you're reliable, that you can, follow up, you can help them deal with issues on the job is going to be very, 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 very important. So I don't know if Jen or VJ have anything else to add on the crucialness of the next step and following up. I mean, doing the blitz, but then post blitz, how you maintain that level of momentum and consistency at that workplace among your assembly. And if not, if there are any questions about um, part one and part two of the training that people have, bringing it all together, um, we could also spend the next few minutes entertaining that. But I know it's getting late. I know people tired, people worked, but we do have 4 minutes. Um, okay, Dylan.
The only thing I'll point out is you're gonna go to this workplace multiple times, so that way you can get multiple shifts, you can get multiple people reached out. So you're not gonna go to one place once. You're gonna go to that, a few times to get any kind of, good contact out of them.
Yes, thank you, VJ.
And I would also like to just say, and every time I do this, I forget to look up the person whose this quote is, but it's a famous organizer from like the 60s and said that 90% of organizing is follow up. And that is so true. Like you have to follow up, you have to be reliable, you have to be consistent and persistent. And you have to if you're going to have assembly meetings, have them at the same time, the same place on a regular basis so that people can, rely on knowing when they can show up.
Yes, thank you. So I'll open up for questions, and if there are not any questions, I want to say thank you to the facilitators, the leaders who shared their experience of organizing Blitz and all the things that go into it and breaking it down for those of us in the assembly. And I also want to thank everybody who participated last Thursday and this Thursday. And I look forward to hearing about how your blitz goes in your assembly area, and be on the lookout for more things from the SWA. The video will be available. Ben's gonna do his thing and make edits so that you could come back to this and use it as necessary. But the time is now. The time is now. We need organization now more than ever. We have a methodology that is proven to work as presenters have shared with us. So let's get to it. Let's experiment. Let's fail. Let's succeed. Let's do all the things. But we got to do something because what's taking place right now isn't working. So we gotta work hard to build this new world we're all trying to achieve. So thank you all so much for your time, for your work, for your commitment to the SWA. And don't forget, on October 16th, there's another session on the history of Black workers for justice that will be very important. Lots of insight and some old school / new school methodology about how we best organize in our workplaces. So thank you all so much. And everybody have a great rest of your Friday, Junior. Then have a great Friday and an incredible weekend. All right, take care.
Thank you. Same to you as well and everyone else.
Thank you guys.
Solidarity, y'all.